Hello, I'm Catherine Dhingra. I'm the Town of Wakefield's Substance Abuse Prevention Coordinator. I am pleased to kick off Wakefield Unified Prevention Coalition's bi-monthly television show with Maureen Buzby today. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you, Catherine.
We are grateful that Maureen took time out of her busy schedule to be with us today. I have given several presentations on substance abuse around the town of Wakefield, and tobacco tends to be one of the most asked about topics. And today, before we begin, I'm going to share with you some local stats based here in Wakefield on why we wanted to host this topic today. So every 2 years, we administer the Wakefield Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And right now, I'm going to present you with some of our findings from the 2011 survey. And you'll see in this chart, according to tobacco use by grade in 2011, 15% of our 8th graders have used tobacco in their lifetime. That number jumps up to over 30%. That's 1/3 of 11th graders using tobacco in their lifetime. And then by 12th grade, we see that 20% of seniors have used tobacco in the last 30 days. We have recently gotten the 2014 data, and we're seeing a troubling trend with e-tobacco products. And that's why we wanted to bring Maureen with us here today, because she's going to educate us a bit about some of the changing trends around tobacco use. Maureen's our Regional Tobacco Program Coordinator. So a lot of people have asked questions around tobacco trends. Maureen, can you explain to viewers exactly what the Tobacco Program Coordinator does?
Sure, Catherine, I'd be glad to. My job consists of 4 major parts. I do enforcement, education, policy, and what we call the 84. Let me spend a couple of minutes on each of those areas. Enforcement involves inspection and compliance checks. I inspect all the stores in Wakefield that have a tobacco permit to make sure that they have their current up-to-date state and local permits. I make sure that they have required signage and make sure all tobacco products are behind the counter. In addition to that, I do compliance checks. A compliance check is when I take a trained youth with me to go into the store and they attempt to buy a tobacco product, and hopefully they're unsuccessful. But it's a way for us to make sure that the local retailers are complying with the minimum age at which they can sell tobacco products. I do a lot of education and awareness. I meet with various groups, teachers, school administrators, coaches, healthcare professionals, other city officials, to share the information that we have about the tactics that the tobacco industry uses to entice our kids to smoke and use other nicotine products, and also to raise their awareness about the tobacco industry's packaging and pricing, the tactics that they're using to get our kids to use these products. I also do work in policy, and what that means is I work with local government officials, usually starting with the health director, and then also with the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, the town manager, other government officials who are interested in ensuring the health and safety of all our citizens, but in this case, especially our youngsters, who are the people that we are trying to prevent from ever starting to use tobacco and other nicotine products, because these products are so addictive. Once started, it's very, very difficult to quit. And then the other part of the work that I do is what we call the 84. The 84 is a high school youth group. If you think of it like a SAD group, Students Against Destructive Decisions, it's kind of like that. And this is a group sponsored by our state tobacco program, and the youth who become members of the 84 Club actually work with us to help combat the tobacco industry and the tactics that they're using to get our kids to use these products. They get a chance to go into the State House on the annual Kick Butts Day, meet with their legislators, and learn from other youth who are doing similar kinds of work.
Well, Maureen, we're really fortunate to have you as a resource to the community of Wakefield. So first you mentioned enforcement. How is Wakefield doing as far as selling tobacco to minors and enforcing that?
That's a great question, Catherine, and I'm very happy to report that in the 3 years that I've been doing this job, Wakefield has had steady improvement. And in fact, in this last round of compliance checks, only one store sold. Of course, we would like to see 100% compliance, but one sale out of all of the compliance checks we did is a very good outcome. I was thinking maybe I should explain how a compliance check works and what happens if there is a sale.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay. We use trained youth. They have to be 16 or 17 years old, and I drive them around to the various stores. I try to park discreetly, but so that I have a view of the youth going into the store. The youth goes into the store and asks the clerk for a tobacco product, maybe a pack of Marlboros or a small cigar, Tipper, whatever. And hopefully the clerk says, "Do you have an ID?" The youth will answer honestly, "No, I don't." And then again, hopefully the clerk will say, "Sorry, I can't sell." That's what happens in most cases. And then the youth comes out to my car and we drive on to the next store. On those rare occasions when a clerk does make a sale to somebody who's underage, the youth brings the product out to the car. We label it with the store address, the date and the time, the price, and then we move on to the next store. Then when I'm back in the office, we write a letter to the store indicating that a sale occurred, and enclosed with that letter is the fine that's appropriate for that sale. If it's a first sale within a 3-year period, it's a $100 fine to the store. If it's a second sale within a 3-year period, it's a $200 fine and a 7-day suspension of the tobacco permit. If it's a third sale in a 3-year period, then it's a $300 fine and a 30-day suspension of the tobacco permit. The idea is to make it painful enough so that the store owner is going to be very, very careful about not selling to minors, and also be very careful to train their employees in adequate ID identification.
Okay, great. Well, it's great that our rates are so high, and hopefully in the next few years we can get them up to 100% through a lot of different community strategies. So thank you again. The next thing you mentioned was the community education. Who are your target audiences when you share awareness around what the tobacco industry is doing to, entice young people to become, their newest customers?
Sure. Again, another good question, and something to make our audience aware of, is that I am available to do presentations, whether it's one person or a group of people. I've met with, as I said, the health director in Wakefield, Ruth Clay, who's been working in tobacco control for many, many years and is a noted expert in the field of tobacco control. I make presentations to the Board of Health on a regular basis so that they can keep up with the newer products that we have to be concerned about. The tobacco industry works very hard to stay one step ahead of us. We put in a regulation and they find a way to get around that regulation with a newer product. I also work with teachers, coaches, school administrators, healthcare professionals. I've done presentations to Boy Scouts, to the medical residents at Cambridge Health Alliance, Rotary, really any group or individual who is interested in learning more about the products that our kids are exposed to, the products that are available in our local stores, and again, the tactics that the industry uses to make these products so appealing to kids.
Okay, thanks, Maureen. And I have to admit, as a parent, I attended one of your presentations and it put a new lens on my eyes. And the next time I took my children down to Moulton Park here in Wakefield, I saw the evidence of some of these products and these newer products that we weren't really aware of 5 or 10 years ago. So a lot of people are still assuming that young people are using tobacco in the form of traditional cigarettes. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about some of the newer products that are emerging?
Sure. I'll start with what we call little cigars. There's a whole category that we call little cigars. They're tipperillos. Sometimes they have a tip, sometimes they don't. They're called cigarillos. These are, as you will note, they are pink, purple, lime green, foil wrapped. All of these products are scented. They're flavored. It makes it much more appealing to young people. The flavor and the scent disguises the harsh taste of a tobacco product. The wrappers make them look more like candy so that they're more appealing, and it's an easier leap from a candy product to a tobacco product. As Catherine said, you'll see debris in playgrounds, schoolyards. If you look closely, you'll see these wrappers everywhere, more than you'll see gum wrappers, potato chip bags, empty soda cans, candy bar wrappers. You'll see these
too. That's what
and
I
the
saw.
tips
Lots
too.
of
You'll
the
even
tips.
you'll even see the tips where somebody's already used the little cigar. So this is what most young people start with. We see this in both middle school and high school. Then another product area that we want to describe for you today is something called chewing tobacco. It's also known as dip and snuff. And chewing tobacco, you'll be a bit familiar with from the old days. It was often called chew, and they came in round tin cans. And this is a Ziploc bag filled with the loose chewing tobacco that most of us are familiar with. Somebody takes a chunk of this, a user takes a chunk of this, and they put it between their lip and their gum, and as their saliva mixes with it, it gets secreted by their mucous membrane right into their system, and that's how they get their nicotine fix. It's smokeless. It's called a smokeless product. You don't light it up like you do a cigarette or the little cigars, but you're getting your fix by letting that dissolve in your mouth. However, when you use this product, the older version, there is a need for you to actually have to spit. And you'll see baseball players standing on a dugout step spitting out the tobacco. So it's not very discreet. And if kids want to use this, a teacher, a coach, a parent is going to know that they're using it. So the tobacco industry actually came up with another product. It sometimes comes in a tin that looks like this, or the same round tin that you're used to seeing. But inside that tin are little tiny pouches of more finely milled tobacco. They look like this. You put this between your cheek and your gum, and nobody knows it's there. And this is called spitless. For whatever reason, when this is dissolving in your mouth and you're getting your nicotine fix this way, you don't need to spit. So you can have it in your mouth for all through your class or your hockey game or whatever it might be, and not have to get rid of the debris. Athletes prefer chewing tobacco and these other spitless products. One, because they don't have to light up, and sometimes coaches or whoever aren't aware that they're using them, but also because it's what our pro athletes use, and those are the heroes, those are the models for our young athletes, and that's whose behavior student athletes are often mimicking when they start using these products. The problem is the nicotine in these products is very, very addictive. So you get hooked on chewing tobacco or any of these smokeless products, and you are as addicted as if you were smoking cigarettes. So there is a danger, and parents especially should be aware that this is a problem if people start to use it. Sure, Catherine.
Can we go back to the cigarellos for a moment? Why are those becoming so much more popular than traditional cigarettes amongst young people?
A good question, and I should have spoken to this. One is, cigarettes are highly regulated by the FDA, and a pack of cigarettes now of the most popular brands, Newports and Marlboros, is about $9.50 with sales tax is $10.10. So cigarettes are almost prohibitively expensive for youth. These little cigars, again flavored and scented and wrapped like this to make them more appealing, are also, there are no minimum prices. So this one, for instance, is 79 cents. A lot of them are 69, 89, some as cheap as 49 cents. So kids can buy these with pocket change, and that made them much more appealing. So we have how the product is made, scented and flavored, how it's packaged, and then how it's priced. So it makes it an easy buy and an easy impulse buy for kids. And if parents and other adults would go into the local convenience stores, gas station, mini marts, whatever, and look closely at the products behind the counter, they'll recognize the packs of cigarettes because we're all used to those. But look more closely and you'll see these kinds of products. The kids know they're there. The kids are buying them and they're using them. This is what they start with.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's definitely something, and I've sat in on your presentations, and I know, and I've done some of these presentations, and I know parents have told me after that they've heard this information, they go into the stores, and you do see you see it through the youth's eyes, and you see how many more of these products are out there than you when you're paying for your milk or your newspaper that you notice. So we appreciate this education. I can't help but notice the tobacco, the e-cigarettes, and this is the new trend. As I mentioned before, we've seen with our latest youth risk behavior survey, we've seen the number of the e-product use in youth go up. We know it's over 20% of our young people in Wakefield have used these products. And I've heard anecdotal stories of students when the teacher turns their head, they're using these products, or they're using the products in the hallways because they can't smell them. So can you talk a little bit more about these products?
Sure, absolutely. It's true, the rage these days is what we call E-Hookah products and E-Cigarette products, and I'll describe both of them because they are a little bit different. And let me first start by saying that neither of these products, E-Hookah or E-Cigarettes, contain tobacco. So when these came onto the market and people started using them, there were no local regulations that regulated who could buy these, who could use these, where they could be used. There are no state regulations and there are no federal regulations. In fact, it's important to note that the FDA, which regulates cigarettes heavily and other tobacco products, not as heavily, but at least they regulate them, the FDA does not regulate e-cigarettes or e-hookah at all. There are no regulations. We're hoping they will at some point. They're studying it. They're supposed to come out with regulations, but right now there are no regulations. A lot of the e-products, we call them e-products that we see, come from other countries. They're made in China, India, Bangladesh, Nepal. Regardless of what the packaging says, we have no idea what's really in them. And in fact, some of the products that we've tested say 0 nicotine, and there actually is nicotine in the products. So before I get into too much more detail about the e-products, let me explain how an e-product works. So you have a cylinder that looks like this. So it kind of mimics a regular cigarette. And there are 3 parts. The cylinder that you hold on to, so it feels similar to a cigarette. There's a little tiny battery, and then there's a cartridge that's filled with liquid nicotine. When you turn the cigarette, the e-cigarette, turn it on, the battery heats the liquid nicotine, and then you start to puff. And that puffing action is not called smoking because there is no smoke, there's no combustion. It's the heated nicotine liquid, which becomes a vapor, and so we call that action vaping. So then that's a new word in our vocabulary now. Somebody goes to the vape store, they buy a vapor product, and they vape, or they've been vaping the e-cigarette. And the same with e-hookah. So this is being marketed as a harm reduction device. That is, it's supposed to be helping people quit cigarettes or cut down on cigarettes, which we know are dangerous. The Surgeon General's report came out 50 years ago, the first one, a new one this year. We've learned more in these last 50 years. Smoking is even more dangerous than we knew. Smoking-related illnesses are the leading cause of preventable deaths in the United States. 400,000 people die every year of preventable deaths related to smoking disease. So we know about smoking. Now, what about these e-cigarettes? It's not smoking. So perhaps not the lung cancer that we've seen with smoking, but these are loaded with nicotine. Nicotine is the most addictive substance in a cigarette. So when you're using an e-cigarette, you are actually taking that nicotine into your system. And just like a cigarette, it can take as few as 3 e-cigarettes to become addicted. And then once you're addicted, you may need more of that nicotine punch, but you will need a regular dose of nicotine. You will need your hit. And so we're worried about dual users, people who will be using these e-cigarettes where they can't use a regular combustible cigarette, but then also using regular cigarettes where they can light up outdoors, at home, and so on. So e-cigarettes, in my mind, not to be considered safe. The FDA is looking at them. We think that they will at least put a restriction on what age you can be to buy an e-cigarette. We don't think they're going to do anything about the flavors that these come in, whereas flavoring is not allowed in a conventional cigarette. Flavors are allowed in e-cigarettes, and we find cherry and wild berry and orange mist and bubble gum and watermelon and chocolate. And we believe that these flavors are aimed at young people, aimed at children. These kinds of flavors are not aimed at the adult market. Also, what we know about e-cigarettes is last summer the CDC came out with a report, and that report indicated that between 2010 and 2011, e-cigarette and e-hookah use among middle school and high school students doubled. And many of those students had never used a conventional cigarette. So obviously they were not using the e-cigarette to cut back on their, or to quit their cigarette habit. So e-cigarettes made with liquid nicotine, and then e-hookah, similar to e-cigarettes in many respects. There's a cylinder, and there's a battery, and there's the flavoring and the fancy packaging. But e-hookah is made with an oil, usually vegetable oil, that has been treated with hookah oil, so that when somebody is vaping with e-hookah, they're vaping in the hookah, the vaporized hookah oil to get the flavor, the scent, the smell, the taste that they're looking for. They come in lots of interesting packages. This one looks like a pen, hence the nickname hookah pen. You'll hear kids talking about hookah pens. These are favored by middle school kids. This one, to a lot of people, looks like a marker. And this one, to some people, it looks like mascara. I don't think these this packaging is at all random or unintended. I think it's quite intended. Also, e-cigarettes now come in packages that might look something like this. Here are your cartridges of liquid nicotine. Here's your cylinder, the little battery here. The batteries don't last that long, so now we have a USB port. So you can plug your e-cigarette into this device, which you can then plug into your laptop. And that means that students can be vaping all day long. And we've heard that high school kids are using these. One, once you start with these products, again, the nicotine and being addicted. Two, they're gadgets, and kids are very attracted to gadgets. And there's a lot of marketing going on to attract our kids to these products. We know that cigarette smoking rates, adult cigarette smoking rates, are actually declining. So the tobacco industry needs a new market. And that market is our kids. And they're getting our kids attracted to these products, again, by the packaging, the flavor, the scenting, the clever gadgetry, as well as the price, which we talked about, the price of many of these products being much lower than a pack of cigarettes.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Like I said, we've been hearing anecdotally from youth that they don't think that these newer e-products are as harmful, so that's why they're easily engaging in them, because they've heard the stories about smoking kills and stuff, but vaping on something that looks like a marker, not so harmful. So that's what's so frightening about this new and emerging industry. What I'm concerned about, what is the government doing? Because I actually read a New York Times article where this liquid spilled on a child and poisoned them. So what are they doing to deal with this issue?
You touched on a grave concern. This is actually cotton candy flavored liquid nicotine, meant to be used with the high-end electronic cigarette devices that you will see in an e-cigarette store. Some of these products that I've shown you are typical of what you would find in a gas station mini mart or convenience store, and then there are higher end products that are much more expensive, and those you would find in an e-cigarette store. But cotton candy, flavors like that, attractive to kids. More calls are coming into the Poison Control Center of kids being poisoned after drinking these vials of liquid nicotine. Very, very dangerous. Also, there was a report in that same New York Times article, I think, about a woman who went to sleep with an e-cigarette. The e-cigarette broke in her bed, and she actually absorbed the nicotine through her skin, and it caused her to have a heart attack. So very serious concerns with these. What's happening these days is, again, there's pressure from states' attorneys general, like Martha Coakley, to get the FDA to take action, and to take action sooner rather than later before we have another whole generation of young people hooked on nicotine products. So we're hoping that happens. On the state level, there are a couple of bills in our state legislature. We're very lucky to be represented by Congressman, or by State Rep Paul Broder and by State Senator Jason Lewis, who are very much in favor of stricter controls for e-products and ways to keep them out of the hands of our youth. There's one bill that would restrict the sale of e-cigarettes to minors, and there's another bill that would treat e-cigarettes like tobacco products. So we'd be able to require permits and go in and do inspections and do compliance checks, those kinds of things.
Okay.
But locally, our local communities are doing much more. And this often happens in the public health arena, that movement starts at the local level, then moves to the state level, and then moves to the federal level. Locally, your Board of Health voted a couple of years ago to treat e-cigarettes like a tobacco product. So it is illegal for a minor to buy an e-product in Wakefield, and it's also it allows us to do inspections and compliance checks. More recently, the Board of Health changed the minimum legal sales age to age 21. So your Board of Health and your health director have been very, very active in doing all that they can to make sure that our young people do not get access to these products.
Thank you, Maureen. And I know we're running out of time, so we have to wrap up. We'll have future shows going forward to give parents tips and advice on how to really prevent their youth from starting to use these products and marijuana and all the other kind of entryway products into more risky substance abuse. And tobacco is very risky, but we want to make sure that we are addressing that prevention issue in upcoming Wake Up episodes. Thank you. Thanks, Maureen, again, for taking time.
Thank you, Catherine.